So today we are going to be dissecting relevant costing, or we can call it relevant cost for decision making. So we are going to discuss introduction to relevant costing, the underlying factors to consider in relevant costing. Of course, usually I don't talk about some terminologies that you need to understand in relation to relevant costing. Usually they are self-study kind of terminology, which are also examinable. So I will show you when we get there. It's not something we are going to discuss. All right, they are in your notes. Then, of course, we are also going to discuss the shortcuts for identifying relevant costs of material and labor in a question. Then thereafter, I will also demonstrate, I will show you how to, the exam tips that what you should be looking out for in a question anytime you want to solve relevant costing question. Then thereafter, we proceed to solving illustrations. So I'll be very happy if we can solve at least 2 illustrations today. That means in our next class, by the grace of God, we solve additional 2. All right. So hopefully we'll be able to achieve our target for today. So let the class begin. Right. So last week I advised you, in fact, not even advise. I told you guys that you should proceed to study relevant costs for decision making. Why did I say so? Because I wanted you to have idea of what we are going to be discussing in the class. And I want to believe that if not all of you, at least majority of you would have gone ahead to study relevant costing. If you have done that, kindly raise your hand. I want to see you. If you glance through relevant costing during the week, between last week, Friday, and today, if you glance through relevant costing, let me know. Raise your hand. 1 minute. I want to see your hand. You know, if I don't see you, God is also seeing you. I know you cannot lie to me. You are a responsible student. You can't lie to me. If you read it, Edward, okay, I can see your hand. All right. Who again? That's about 1% of the class. Yes, Olani. Okay, who again? Only 2 people. We have 20 seconds to go. Okay, Victoria, you also read through relevant costing. That's good. 3 people. Yes. We have about 5% people that have read it. Yes. Who again? Are you telling me only 3 people? It's all right. Please, I beg of you, anytime I ask you or any of your lecturers ask you to do something, try as much as possible to do it. It's for your own benefit. It's for your own good. Remember, none of your lecturers is writing ICAN exam. You have the responsibility to read, study hard, and then pass your exams. So our responsibility as your preferred tutor is to guide you, is to simplify the concept for you so that on that day you'll be able to do well in your exam. But if lecturers are telling you to do something and you don't do it, it's the pain is on you, not on the lecturer. But it will be our joy and it's our wish that you succeed in your exam because you are the one that need the success. As equity professional, we need is the pride, is our pride. And our motto is that your success is our pride. It is only when you succeed that we can claim it, that we can enjoy that pride. We can brag about your success everywhere we go, right? So guys, take it very seriously. Time and tide wait for nobody. Time and tide wait for nobody. We started January yesterday. Today will be our last lecture day in the month of January, even though this is our third class. But again, that's to show that time is going. Time is going. So if you're asked to study, it's for your own good, because yearly preparation is key for you to pass any ICAN exam that you want to write. Right? Please don't be lazy. Don't complain. Don't give any justification for failure to do something. You can't tell me because you are busy, that's why you could not read. That's not an excuse, because you are not the only one working, right? So that no matter how busy you are, out of 24 hours in a day, you can't tell me that you don't have 2 hours to study. So no excuse. All right. So let today's class that begins. Yes, let's talk about introduction to relevant costing. Now, one thing you need to understand is that this topic is one of the most frequently tested topics in ICAN exam. And in recent time, for the past 3 to 4 years, ICAN has been testing this area as a compulsory question, which is 30 marks. So that's for you to know the importance of relevant costing. And it is very straightforward, but students usually uh, get it wrong if they are unable to interpret the scenario in the question, because relevant costing question is not 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It's not mathematics. It's not what 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It's very logical. It is principle based. Until you are able to understand the principle, the underlying principle, that is only when you are going to do well in passing question on the relevant costing. So because I don't know what examiner will test in the subsequent in the next coming exam, and that's why you have to take every topic very seriously. All right. So let's dive in straight to discussing what relevant cost is. What do you mean by relevant costing? Now, one thing you need to understand is that not all costs are relevant, because on the day of your exam, examiner will give to you scenario-based question. At times, it could be 1 page, 2 pages, in fact, 3 pages. So different kinds of information will be loaded in the question, particularly for the compulsory question. Therefore, you have the responsibility to be able to infer from the question, or to deduce from the question what the examiner is asking you to do. Because they may not ask, the examiner may not ask you to calculate relevant cost. All right. So what are those things that you are supposed to look out for in the question? Like I was trying to say, relevant costing question is not direct. It's not 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It is your responsibility to be able to identify from the question what examiner is saying. But you can't do much. You can't solve relevant costing question correctly if you don't understand the concept, you don't understand the principle, because it is logical. Unless you follow the right approach, that is only when you are going to arrive at the right answer. So all of this we are going to be discussing is in this topic. I will show you what you need to do. Okay? So what do you then understand by relevant costing? What do you understand by relevant costing? I can see. So like I was saying, not all costs are relevant, and you must be able to identify which uh, of the costs, which among all the costs given to you in a question are relevant. Therefore, you can say, simply put, relevant costs are costs that are directly attributable to a particular course of action in making managerial decision. I repeat, relevant costs are costs that are directly attributable to a particular course of action in making managerial decision. When you talk about relevant costs, they are costs that will be incurred purposely as a result of decision taking. Okay, any cost that will change as a result of taking a particular course of action are relevant costs. Now, in the determination of relevant cost, there are some underlying factors principles, all right? You can call it determinants or criteria, attributes. Examiner can call it anything. It's the same thing of relevant costing. What are those things that you must see before you can say this cost is relevant? That's what I want to discuss. So like I said, examiner can call it factors, attributes, quality, criteria, or fundamental principles of relevant costing. So basically, there are three of them. One is future, two, incremental, then three, cash flow. What do you mean by future? Relevant costs are future costs. They are costs that are futuristic in nature. This simply means that any costs that have been incurred in the past, that is sunk costs, are not relevant to the decision that is to be taken because the company or management cannot change what has happened in the past. I repeat, when you talk about future, it simply means that relevant costs are future costs. They are futuristic in nature. They are costs that have not been incurred at all. So this implies that any costs that have been incurred in the past, such as sunk costs, they are irrelevant. Any costs that have been incurred in the past are irrelevant, okay? Because management cannot change what has happened in the past. So for a cost to be relevant, it must be futuristic in nature. It must be cost that you just want to incur, not the cost that you have incurred. Any cost incurred are sunk costs, and sunk costs are irrelevant costs. That's one. The second one is incremental. Incremental costs are costs that change between alternatives as a result of the decision taken. I repeat, incremental costs are costs that change between alternatives as a result of the decision taken. They are increase or decrease. They are increase or decrease in cost item as a result of taking a particular course of action. For example, let's say in 2023, okay, between 2023 and then 2024, let's say a company incurs fixed cost, okay, fixed cost of 100,000 naira in 2023. In 2024, this cost has increased to 120,000. Management is now asking, how much of fixed costs were incurred in 2024? All you need to do is to compare the change, what has happened between the 2 years. From 100,000 naira, fixed cost has increased to 20,000. So technically, the amount incurred in 2024 is 20,000 naira. So this 20,000 naira represents incremental cost. And that's why we said that incremental costs are costs that change between alternatives as a result of the decision taken. They represent the increase or decrease in cost item as a result of the decision taken. All right. So that is simply what incremental cost is all about. So anytime you have incremental cost in a question, they are relevant costs and must be considered. Okay. Then the third one is cash flow. Relevant costs are future cash flows. All right. Relevant costs are future cash flows. They are cash item, which simply means that any non-cash item or notional costs, such as depreciation, amortization, or provision, they are not cash flow and therefore should be ignored. I will repeat it. When you talk about cash flow, we said that relevant costs are future cash flows. They must be cash item. Relevant cost must be cash item, must be cash flow. For a cost to be relevant, it must be cash flow, it must be cash item. So this simply means that any non-cash item or notional cost like depreciation, amortization, or provision should be ignored because they don't involve movement of cash. They do not involve movement of cash. So that's that. So these are the three underlying principles that you must consider or concepts or what we call determinants of relevant costs. So if they are not present in a question, then it will be difficult for you to recognize such costs as relevant. Okay, so I will repeat again. When you talk about relevant cost, there are three attributes that must be present. One is that the cost must relate to the future. It must be futuristic in nature, meaning that any costs that have been incurred in the past, they are sunk costs, okay? And it's not relevant because it's not possible to change what has happened in the past. The second one is incremental. We said incremental costs are costs that change between alternatives as a result of the decision taking. They represent the increase or decrease in cost item as a direct consequence of the decision taking. All right. And the third one is cash flow. We said the relevant costs are future cash flows. They are cash items, okay, arising as a result of the decision taking. So this simply means that any non-cash item or notional cost like depreciation, amortization, or provision are not relevant and should be ignored. Why? Because they are not cash items. They do not involve movement of cash. So that's simply that. These are the examiner can ask you to explain the underlying principle of relevant cost, or they can call it attribute or quality of relevant cost. So you should be able to say something. All right. Now, the next thing we are going to talk about is definition of terms in relation to relevant costing. Definition of terms. This is what I was telling you the other time. We are not going to discuss this, so you read it on your own. So examiner is also, to a large extent, examiner has tested it in recent time, like 2-3 times, whereby you are going to be given a scenario, then examiner will now ask you, explain or discuss the following. Number one, opportunity cost, differential cost, committed cost, okay? Sunk cost, avoidable cost, unavoidable cost. So you need to know all of these things because you can't be talking about relevant costing without you understanding them. So even the examiner cannot be asking you what is cost, but you just have to go through all of them. So you read them through. They're in your notes. Read them through. Okay? Read them through. They are pretty straightforward and simple. All right? So read them through. Now, the next area we are going to discuss is how to identify relevant costs for material and labor. Again, at this point, I will have to switch to my working notes so that I can fully explain this to you. All right. So let me use my working note to explain this in details. So that as I'm speaking on each line item, you'll be able to at least to gain something. All right. So let's start with material. Okay. Shortcuts. Shortcuts for determining relevant costs for material. Now, why did I single out this shortcut? The reason is because on the day of your exam, under relevant costing question, The issue will be centered around material and labor. The onus is on you to be able to identify relevant cost of material and the relevant cost for labor. How do you identify relevant cost of material and labor? That's what we want to discuss. No matter how big is the question, no matter how voluminous or how difficult is the question, if it is under relevant costing, certainly you can't do wrong. If you master this concept that I want to discuss with you. So, excuse me. Now, when you talk about relevant cost of material, let me put it this way. The following items should be critically examined. Should be critically examined when determining relevant costs of material. Okay. What are the items? There are three of them. One is current purchase price. Current purchase price. Then two, disposal value. Three, historical cost. Certainly, there is no how you are going to have question on relevant costing that you are not going to meet two, at least two of these three line items that I just mentioned. At least you see two of them in a question. How do you treat it when you see it? That's what we want to discuss. So the first item is current purchase price. Current purchase price. What do you mean by current purchase price? How do you identify in a question that current purchase price is relevant? Let's talk about it. This is also known as replacement cost. This is also known as replacement cost. It represents the amount or the price at which the item of inventory can be purchased currently in the market. So when you talk about current purchase price, let's say, for example, as a manufacturing company, you are going to need raw material to produce. So when you need the raw material, what do? You go to the market and buy. So the price at which you buy the material in the market is what is known as current purchase price or replacement cost. Okay, so in a question, how do you then know that the cost given to you is relevant? Anytime you see current purchase price in a question or replacement cost, you just have to use it. That means it is relevant. You have to use it. But particularly, let me put it down for you. Current purchase price. Let me write that. current purchase price or replacement cost should be used if it can be ascertained that the material is infrequent or regularly used. Okay, the material is infrequent or regularly used. All right, that is when you use current purchase price. So if in a question, in fact, the bottom line is that if you can see current purchase price in a question or replacement cost in the scenario, you need nobody to tell you that you are going to use that replacement cost. What we are saying is that when you go to the market to purchase raw material, you keep it in your warehouse. From the warehouse, you usually have for production. Anytime you want to produce, you go to the store or the warehouse, you usually it out. See, you are going to exhaust the material. When you exhaust the material, the right thing to do is to then replace it. So the price at which you are going to replace the material is your current purchase price. So what we are now saying is that if it can be ascertained that the material is in frequent use or the material is being used frequently or regularly, then in that case, relevant costs should be considered, current purchase price should be considered as relevant cost. So please take note of that. Let me underline this for you, these words. Okay, that's the key thing there. So that is how to identify relevant cost of labor or sort of material under current purchase price. Next, disposal value. Disposal value. This is also known as scrap value, net realizable value, trading value or resale value, or trading value. They mean the same thing. It represents the amount at which the material held in store, or in stock, the material held in store or warehouse can be disposed of. Okay. What we are saying is that, originally when you need material, like I mentioned earlier on, what do? You go to the market and buy the material. You don't keep it in the warehouse. From the warehouse, you issue the material for production. You usually out for production. Now, let's say, for example, you don't need the material again, or maybe you over purchase the material. The excess, you don't need it again. So if you don't need it again, what do? You dispose it off, you sell it. That's the implication. You dispose it or you sell it. Of course, you can't sell it at the price at which you bought it. It has to be at a scrap. All right. So that is disposal value. Now, what are the things you should look out for? How do you treat disposal value in a question? Let me put it down for you. Disposal value represents a saving to an organization. Disposal value represents a saving to an organization. Therefore, disposal value should be considered if it can be ascertained if it can be ascertained that the material held in store is no longer needed and will be disposed of. Is no longer needed and will be disposed of. This is what we are saying. This material, you already have it in your warehouse or in your store. So like I said earlier, due to over purchasing, you don't need it again. If you don't need it, then what do? You sell it, you dispose it off, you get money in return. That money you get in return is a saving. Okay, it's a saving. So that is the treatment of disposal value. Even though in most of the questions, in fact, in all the questions you are going to see, examiner will never call it a saving. You are going to be told that it will be disposed of at a cost. Rather, it is not a cost, it is a saving. You are the one that will interpret it as a saving. Examiner will never call it a saving. In fact, examiner can go to a very deep extent, telling you that, okay, this material is toxic, right? So examiner is simply trying to test your understanding. Because you have seen that, oh, it is toxic, and then to dispose of at a cost. You then believe it's going to be a cost. It is not. Disposal value is not a cost, it's a saving. You have already purchased those material before. You have spent your money to purchase the material before. You kept it in your warehouse, but because you don't need it again. If you don't need it again, you sell it off, you dispose it off. But examiner will not tell you to be disposed of as a saving. No, it will be disposed of at a cost. That's what examiner will tell you. So it is your responsibility to be able to infer or to interpret it as a saving, because disposal value represents a saving to an organization. Disposal value represents a saving to an organization. Take note of that. It is not a cost. Finally, the third one, which is historical cost. Historical cost. What do you mean by historical cost? This is also known as sunk cost. Okay, this is also known as sunk cost. This represents the amount at which the item of inventory was purchased. This represents, let me call it the original amount. This represents the original amount at which the item of inventory was purchased previously. Okay? It is also known as sunk or past cost. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, when you talk about historical costs, let's say, for example, you purchase in 2024, you purchase you purchase raw material worth 1 million naira. You purchase raw material worth 1 million naira. In 2025, that material has become historical. The cost of that material, if you now want to determine your relevant cost of a project or of a contract, whereby you are going to need material, the material that you have in your store is not relevant to the future decision that you want to take, because the cost of that material is past, is historical, it's a sunk cost. You can't change what has happened in the past, because relevant costs must relate to the future. It must be futuristic in nature. Any historical cost is a sunk cost. Any sunk cost is a past cost. Any past cost is irrelevant cost and should be ignored. I believe this is clear. Okay, so let me put it down for you. The historical cost, the historical cost of material is irrelevant and should be ignored, and should be ignored because it can't influence the future decision that is to be taken. Okay, so that's that. So these are the things you need to consider in relation to relevant cost of material. The first thing that we discuss, the first item that we discuss is the current purchase price. We said the current purchase price is the amount at which the item of inventory or raw materials can be purchased currently in the market, and it is also known as replacement cost. All right. Current purchase price is a relevant cost. And I say that anytime you see current purchase price or replacement cost in a question, it is relevant, you have to use it. The second item is the disposal value. We said that disposal value represents the amount at which the item of raw material held in store can be disposed of, okay, can be sold. And then the disposal value represents the saving to an organization. Therefore, the disposal value should be used, okay? The disposal value should be used or should be considered if it can be ascertained that the material is no longer needed and will be disposed of, okay? And I also emphasize that in a question, examiner will not tell you that disposal value is a saving. You are going to be told that to be disposed of at a cost. And I said that it is not a cost, because you are the one that will interpret it as a cost. No matter how examiner describe it, it is a saving, not a cost. Okay, it is a saving, not a cost. Now, note this particular information. At times, examiner can give you disposal value in a question. The fact that you are given disposal value does not make it a saving. It will only become a saving if you are told that the material will be disposed of. If you are not told the material will be disposed or the material will be sold, then just ignore the disposal value given to you. Just ignore it. It is irrelevant. But if you are told that the material will be disposed of or the material will be sold, that is only when you treat disposal value as a saving. Okay, of course, as we proceed, you are going to be seeing all these kind of examples and the way we are going to treat it. All right. So that is that. Then the last one is historical cost. And I said that historical cost is also known as a sunk cost. They are costs that have been incurred, or they are the original cost. Historical cost is original cost or original amounts at which the item of inventory was purchased in the past, okay? And then anywhere you see historical costs or past costs or some costs in a question, they are irrelevant. Just ignore it because they can't influence, they can't change what is to happen in the future. Anything that has happened in the past cannot influence the future decision that you want to take. All right. So these are the three key items that you need to take into consideration in your determination of relevant cost of material. Then let's talk about relevant cost of labor. Okay, shortcut. Shortcuts for determining relevant costs of labor. The following items, the following items should be examined. The following items should be examined critically when determining relevant cost of labor. Number one, spare capacity. Spare capacity, let me write it. Then two, full capacity. Now, before we begin to discuss this, let me know if you have any question to ask me under the shortcut for determining relevant cost of material, where I mentioned current purchase price, disposal value, and then historical cost. Do you have any question on that? If you have, you just raise your hand. Let me give you a clarification. If not, then we proceed on the shortcut for determining relevant cost of labor. Okay, so let's talk about spare capacity. So again, what we want to discuss here are what you should be looking out for in a question anytime you want to determine relevant cost of labor. What are the key things that you need to consider? That's what we want to discuss. There are just two line items that are very critical for determining relevant cost of labor. We said the first one is the spare capacity, and two is the full capacity. Let's talk about spare capacity. All right, this is also known as spare capacity is also known as idle time, idle time, or idle capacity, idle time or idle capacity. Okay, so what do you mean by spare capacity or idle capacity? This arises, let me give a space. This arises when an employee When an employee is currently working below the normal operating hours, or when an employee is not fully engaged. When an employee is not fully engaged due to low volume of activities. Okay, due to low volume of activities. What we are saying is that, you as an employee, I'm talking to you right now in this class, you as an employee, from day one, from the first day of the month to the end of the month, it's not every day that you are going to be busy 8 hours in a day, from 8 o'clock or from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 p.m. in the evening. Any day you go to the office, not every day you go to the office that will be busy all the day. There will be a time whereby you are going to have spare time, walking around, doing not much, because there are low volume of activities. You don't have much to do. It's not your fault. And there are some days in the month whereby you are fully engaged, you are very busy, such that even the hours that you spend, your normal working hour may not be sufficient, that you have to stay behind in the office so that you can deliver or meet up with the deadline. But what we are now saying is that as far as spare capacity is concerned, when an employee is not fully engaged due to low volume of activity, then this will result to idle time or idle capacity or spare capacity. All right. So when there is idle capacity, what are you supposed to do? All right. Let me put it down for you. When there is idle capacity, when there is spare capacity or idle capacity, the relevant costs of labor is equal to 0. That is, you will not charge anything. Anytime there is spare capacity, you are not going to charge anything because labor cost is equal to 0. That's the key thing there. That's the key thing. That's the take home. Anytime there is spare capacity, relevant cost is equal to 0. For example, in a question, examiner can tell you that this project will require engineers or engineering hours. This project will require 10 hours of the engineers. Okay. Currently, the engineers are idle for 6 hours. Okay. Currently, the engineers are idle for 6 hours. They will now tell you that the wage rate is 15,000 naira per hour, So because examiner has told you that the engineers are idle for 6 hours, you need 10 hours to be able to execute the job. But the engineers that will perform the job, they are idle for 6 hours. That means technically you don't need 10 hours to do the job. What you are going to recognize as the cost of the project is 4 hours because the engineers are idle for 6 hours out of the 10 hours that you need. So it is the 4 hours that you are going to use to, even though you are going to spend 10 hours to do the job, or because the engineers are currently idle, they are not doing anything. So that means what you are, the cost, the labor cost you consider would be for the 4 hours out of the 10 hours. Okay, so that is what you are going to do under spare capacity. I will repeat again. When you talk about spare capacity, it will occur when an employee is not fully engaged due to low volume of activity. For example, if an employee is supposed to work for 8 hours in a day, and currently the employee is working for 5 hours, it means that the employee is idle for 3 hours. So if this company has a special order to execute that will require 2 hours of the employee, the company will not pay the employee as a result of doing the job, because the employee is idle for 3 hours and you just spend 2 hours out of the 2 hours idle time. Okay, so the labor cost for such an employee will be equal to 0. You don't charge anything when there is idle time. I believe that is clear. The last one is full capacity. Okay, let me underline this for you. That's the key word there. Then the last one is full capacity. Okay, this is just the opposite of spare capacity. So the employees the employees working at full capacity are generally those, I'm gonna write that, are generally those on a monthly salary, salaries. Therefore, the salaries paid to employees monthly is a fixed cost, and therefore not relevant to the future decision that is to be taken. Okay, so just like you are working for an organization or for a company and you earn salary on a monthly basis. The salary that you earn in the business is fixed in nature because every month is the same amount you are earning. Therefore, that your salary is irrelevant cost. Okay, the salary you earn is irrelevant cost because it will not change anything as per the future decision that you want to take. All right, because you are working at full capacity. So the salary that is being paid to you is not part of cost that should be considered as relevant. So um, when you are given a fixed cost, or you are given you are told that the engineers or the employee is working at full capacity, so you should be able to deduce from the question whether the money the salary paid is relevant or irrelevant. So like I said, because the salary is fixed in nature, therefore it is not relevant at all. It is not relevant, except it is incremental in nature. Okay, it's not relevant to the future decision that is to be taken. Let me put it down. Let me include that. Except it is incremental. Except it is incremental in nature. So that's only when you consider fixed cost. Now, what are you supposed to do? However, let me put it down for you. The only relevant cost of labor, the only relevant cost of labor, the only relevant cost of labor at full capacity, is the extra labor cost, that will be incurred, as a direct consequence, of the decision taking. Or as a direct consequence of the decision taking. In addition, the cost of diverting resources, such as opportunity costs, let me put it this way. The cost of diverting resources arising from opportunity costs or contribution loss is relevant and should be considered. Okay. So these are the things you need to do under full capacity. Now, what we are saying is that the salary that will be paid to to employee working at full capacity is irrelevant. Why? Because it is fixed. It is a fixed cost. Fixed cost is irrelevant cost, except it is incremental in nature. However, the only labor cost associated with employee at full capacity is the extra labor cost that the company will incur. Okay, extra labor cost that the company will be incur as a result of the decision taking. Or we can also say any cost that the company will incur as a result of diverting resources, including the opportunity cost or contribution loss that will arise from taking that particular action, then that cost is relevant and should be considered. So that's what we are saying here. All right. So in a question, when you are given salaries, you should know that salary is irrelevant cost because it is fixed in nature. Remember, relevant costs are costs that will influence the decision that you want to take. There are future costs. Okay. So any cost that is fixed and that there are costs that are incremental or that will change as a result of decision taking, any cost that is fixed is not going to change anything. All right. So any salary paid to an employee, you should know that it's a fixed cost, and a fixed cost is irrelevant cost. And I said, except it is incremental. So these are the key things you need to know under material and labor when you want to determine relevant cost of relevant cost of a cost item. Okay. Now, what are the exam tips? Finally, let me give you the exam tips that you need to take home under this. Now, one thing you need to understand is that relevant cost questions are solved from the additional information. The question will be scenario based. If you are lucky, you may be given just one page question. But oftentimes, if it's a compulsory question, it may be more than one page. All right, maybe 2 pages. So the bottom line is that the scenario, how you are going to treat it, the direction, the question will show you the direction that you should follow. All right, the question will show you the direction that you should follow. But what I'm trying to say in essence is that relevant cost questions are solved through the additional information. That's number one tip. Relevant cost questions are solved through the additional information given. Okay. Number two, points that you need to consider. The figures given in a table. The figures given in a table before the additional information are mostly irrelevant. And should be ignored. Are mostly irrelevant and should be ignored, except there is no other figure. There is no other figure other than, let me write it, other than what is given in the table. Okay, that's point number two. Point number three that you should consider. When examiner asks you to cost a project, when examiner required that you should cost a project or calculate minimum price to quote The examiner is simply asking. The examiner is simply asking that you should calculate relevant cost. Number 4, when you are told that material held in store will be disposed of at a cost. You need to interpret. You need to interpret it you need to interpret it as a saving and not as a cost. Okay? Then the last point here will be that at all time or always state your assumptions. Always state your assumptions because it carries, because assumptions carries more mark. Carries more mark. More marks than the calculation under relevant costing. So these are the 5 key points you need to take into consideration when you are solving question under relevant costing. This number 5 in particular is very important. You know, students usually get carried away when they are solving question under relevant costing. They just do their calculation, they calculate relevant cost, and they disappear. Boom. They forgot, to state their assumptions. At times, let's say, for example, the question is like 15 marks. Assumption may take like 9 or even 10 marks. So the calculation that's so important to you carry a lower mark relative to the assumption. Whether examiner asks you or not, you just have to state your assumption. Assumption simply means how do you give justification on how you arrive at your number. Explain to me. I want to know the assumption behind your numbers. How do you arrive at your calculation? Just explain. Assumption is not something you are going to fabricate. It's already there in the question. Just explain to the examiner how you treat the question. That's all. That's what the examiner is asking you. So these are the 5 points you need to take into consideration when you are solving relevant costing question. And at this point, let's have an illustration. Let me know if you have any question for me before I switch to illustration. Any question for me? Okay. In the absence of no question for now, let me switch so that we can have examples. So like I mentioned, we can't solve more than 4 illustrations under this because it's time consuming and we still have a long way to go. All right. So today, if we're able to solve like 2 questions, I'll be very happy. That means in our next class, we'll be able to solve 2 more illustration, but I doubt it. If we can be able to solve 2 today, I doubt it. All right, but let's see. Now we are going to solve different scenario questions. Because this illustration about, I wouldn't have solved this illustration about 1, but because of the requirements, that's what I want to, it's a different scenario. So we are going to solve this by the grace of God. In this question, you're asked to write a report. And because of that report, that's why I would love to solve it. Then we also solve, let me see. Okay, possibly we solve this illustration number 4 as well. This one has been, this illustration have been tested like twice by ICAN. Then we're also going to solve, I won't solve this. We're also going to solve, let me see this one. What's the requirement? Yeah, we're also going to solve illustration number 6 by the grace of God. Then lastly, I think that's 3, Abby. Then lastly, the one tested in May 2025. I will need to update this material to include that. I forgot it. I wanted to include it before, but I forgot. So we're also going to solve this one. So those are the 4 illustrations that we are going to solve. Okay, so let's take it one by one. Let's start with the illustration number 1. I need a CNN caster that will help us do justice to the question. Who will help us to read? I need a CNN, not local caster. When I say CNN, BBC, okay, I simply mean a lady, right? All right, that's what I mean by that. So let me look at you. Yes, I can see. Okay, let me just allow you to, I need somebody to volunteer. Who is helping us to read? Yes.
Okay, so let me read Chidera.
Yeah, Chidera, thank you. Right.
Illustration 1. Ojo Labor Manufacturing Company PLC has approached you for some expert advice on Project X, a one-off order from overseas for which the company intends to tender. The costs associated with the project are as follows. Material A, we have 40,000 naira. Material B, 80,000. Direct labor costs, 60,000. Supervision, 20,000. Overhead, 120,000, totaling 320,000. You ascertain the following. Material A in stock and the above was the cost. There is now no other use for material A other than the above project within the factory, and it will cost 17,500 to dispose of. Material B would have to be ordered at the cost shown above. Direct labor cost of 60,000 relates to workers that will be transferred to this project from another project. Extra labor will need to be recruited to the other project at a cost of 70,000. Supervision cost has been charged to the project on the basis of 33 slash
33 1/3.
33 1/3 of
33
labor cost.
1/3%.
Okay, of labor cost, and will be carried out by existing staff with the normal duties. Overheads has been charged to the project at the rate of 200% on direct labor. The company is currently operating at the point above break-even point. The project will need the utilization of machinery that will have no other use of the company after the project has finished. The machinery will have to be purchased at the cost of 100,000. and then disposed for at 52,500 at the end of the project. The company tells you that the overseas customers is prepared to pay up to a maximum of 300,000 for the project, and a competitor is prepared to accept the order at the price. He also informs you the minimum that he has charged to 400,000 is 400,000, as the above shows 320,000. And this does not take into consideration the cost of machine and profit to be taken on the project. Required: A. Cost the project for the company, clearly stating how you have arrived at your figures and giving reason for exclusion of other figures. B. Write a report to the company stating whether the organization should tender for the project, stating the reasons why the project, and bearing in mind that the competitor is prepared to undertake the project for 300,000. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chidera. That is the question. Okay. Now, in the requirement number A, you are to cost the project for the company, clearly stating how you have arrived at your figures and given reasons for the exclusion of other figures. So examiner wants you to cost the projects. So you must understand the requirements. What am I asked to do? Here I can see I'm to cost the project. What does it mean to cost the project? What the examiner is simply asking you to do is to calculate relevant cost for this contract. In that same A requirements, examiner is also asking you to clearly show how you have arrived at your figures and given reason for the exclusion of other figures. This simply means that examiner wants you to state your assumptions. What are the underlying assumptions in your calculation? State it. I want to see it. Then number B, you are to write a report to the company stating whether the company should tender for the project, stating the reason why and the price, and bearing in mind that the competitor of this company is willing and ready to undertake the project at the contract price of 300,000 naira. So this is the question and this is the requirements. So what are you supposed to do? I want to cost the project. I want to determine relevant cost. Let me stop sharing this. You can open to the question at your end. All right. So we want to prepare relevant cost. I will stop sharing this so that I can move to the working notes. Solution. So illustration number 1. Page, what page is that? Page 24. Now, you remember what I told you earlier today, that relevant cost questions are solved through the additional information. Okay, let's do it this way. The name of this company is, what again? Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company PLC. That's the name of the company. Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company Limited. So number A, requirements. Requirement number A1. A Roman figure 1. I will then say calculating relevant cost for project X. Examiner says you should cost the project. So what the examiner is simply asking you is to calculate relevant cost. You remember I told you that relevant costs are solved through additional information. Not only that, any costs given to you in a table, all right, before the additional information are mostly irrelevant, except there is no other figure other than what you have in the table. Okay, so all of this, we are going to put them into practice as we are solving this question. So to prepare the relevant cost, I'm going to create two Naira signs. Okay, I will create two Naira signs. Remember, what you are preparing is a cost. Anytime, anywhere you have a saving, you are going to put your saving in brackets. Saving is cash inflow, but because the title of what you want to do is a cost, so that means you are going to put your saving in a bracket in order to reduce the cost. Okay, so let's then go ahead and solve this question. To do this, we then go back to the illustration. I will start all over again. We'll be reading paragraph by paragraph. So we are told that Uju Elegba Manufacturing Company PLC has approached you for some expert advice on Project X. You are the expert in this case. You are the management accountant. You are the one responsible. You are the one that has the requisite experience, qualification, and exposure to be able to advise management accordingly. And that's why the management has approached you. A one-off order from overseas for which the company intends to tender, the costs associated with the project are as follows. All those costs that make up 320,000 naira from material A to overhead costs, they are purely irrelevant. We ignore them. You are going to assume that they are irrelevant. So you just moving straight to the additional information. Remember, relevant cost questions are solved through the additional information. So we are now told that you ascertained the following. So now we have the scenario. Material A is in stock and the above was the cost. How much do we have above? In the table given to us, material A is 40,000 naira. We are told that that 40,000 naira of material A is in stock. There is now no other use for material A other than the above project, that is, other than project X within the factory, and it will cost the company 17,500 naira to dispose of. When I was explaining shortcut for determining relevant cost of material, I mentioned disposal value, and I said that disposal value is the amount at which the item of inventory held in store can be disposed of, that is, can be sold. And I also said that disposal value will represent a saving to an organization. Therefore, disposal value should be considered if it can be ascertained that the material will be disposed of or is no longer needed. Okay, so this material A that cost 40,000 naira, examiner is telling you that there is now no other use for material A other than the above projects within the factory, and it will cost the company 17,500 naira to dispose of. So we have been told that this material A that cost 40,000 naira will be disposed of at a cost of 17,500 naira. The principle says that disposal value is a saving. And I also explained to you that examiner will never call it a saving. Rather, you are going to be told it will be disposed of at a cost. And I mentioned that it is not a cost, rather it is a cash inflow. It's a saving. We are going to treat it as a saving. That's the treatment of disposal value under relevant costing. Therefore, let's go and recognize that. So I will then come here, material A, or you can just say material, since you have more than one material. So we have material A. This is a disposal value. And we are told that it will cost the company 17,500 naira to dispose of. So you then come here, 17,500. Now, because what we are calculating is a cost. Cost simply means cash outflow. This disposal value of 17,500 naira is a saving, it's a cash inflow. Therefore, you have to put it in bracket because what you want to calculate is a cost, it's a cash outflow. So your saving must be in bracket to reduce the cost. So with this, we have treated disposal value. This is how to treat disposal value. Let's move on to the next scenario. Please, anything that is not clear to you, always raise your hand and I will explain in details. Because remember what I told you when we started this, relevant costing question is very logical. 1 plus 1 is not equal to 2 when it comes to relevant costing. All these concepts that we have been discussing since, all the principles we have been discussing since, they are the things that you are going to be applying in solving the question. Okay, that's what you are going to do. So let's go back to the question now. So we have treated, when I now want to state my assumption, I need to talk about material A. How did I treat my material A? So I will talk about it. That will come much more later. Then continue from the same paragraph. Material B would have to be ordered at a cost shown above. Material B would have to be ordered at the cost shown above, which means that material B is not available, so they have to order for it. That means a future cost. The cost of material B of 80,000 naira is a future cost because the company says, the question says that material B would have to be ordered. So it's not available, so they have to order for it. It's a future cost. That means that 80,000 naira is relevant. So let's go and take it. So I will say material B. Material B, 80,000. It's a cost. So that's that. Then after material, let's move on. What's the next one? The second paragraph under the additional information, you are told that direct labor cost of 60,000 naira relate to workers that will be transferred to this project from another project. Okay, that 60,000 naira, I want to ask you, is it relevant or irrelevant? You are told that direct labor cost of 60,000 naira relate to workers that will be transferred to this project from another project. Let me explain that. Currently, there are some workers that earn 60,000 naira and they are currently working on a project. However, the company intends to transfer them to come and execute project X. So the cost that the company paid to those workers is 60,000 naira. So I'm not putting it to you. This 60,000 naira, is it relevant or irrelevant? If you know it, raise your hand. Yes, Aurelia, talk to me.
It is an irrelevant cost, sir.
Take it again, Ore.
It is an irrelevant cost because it is a fixed cost.
Okay, it is irrelevant because irrespective of the decision taken on this new project X, the company will still pay the workers the 60,000 naira. So that's the reason. So the 60,000 naira is irrelevant because irrespective of the decision taken, the workers will be paid. Okay? Edward, mute. Thank you. Okay, so that 60,000 naira, we are not going to consider it because whether the company execute this project X or not, the workers must be paid that 60,000 naira. Any cost that will not change as a result of the future decision taking is irrelevant. Still on the same paragraph, extra labor would need to be recruited to other project at a cost of 70,000. Now, Because the company wants to transfer the workers that earn 60,000 naira, the company wants to transfer them to come and execute project X. The company will then need to recruit additional labor to do their job. Because if the company does not recruit labor that will do their job, that will be vacuum. All right. So there will be low productivity because nobody will be available to do the job, to do their job. And that's why the company wants to recruit extra labor. Remember what I was telling you, what I told you earlier today, that under full capacity, the labor cost at full capacity, the labor cost at full capacity is irrelevant. Okay, the only relevant cost of labor at full capacity is the extra labor cost that the company will incur, or the cost of diverting resources arising from opportunity cost or contribution loss. So this extra labor cost of 70,000 naira is relevant. We have to consider that. So I will then come here, labor, or call it extra labor cost. 70,000, put it there, it's part of the cost. So we are going to state our assumption, the reason why we ignore that 60,000. Next item. Supervision costs has been charged to the project on the basis of 33 1/3% of labor costs and would be carried out by existing staff with their normal duties. Now, when you look at the table given to us, supervision cost is 20,000 naira, and we are told that this 20,000 naira is charged to the project on the basis of 33 1/3, that is 1/3% of direct labor cost. Remember, according to this table, direct labor cost is 60,000 naira. So 33 1/3 percent of 60,000 is 20,000 naira. So examiner is only explaining how they arrive at their supervision cost of 20,000. So I want to put it to you, right? That supervision cost of 20,000 naira, is it relevant or irrelevant? If you know it, raise your hand. Supervision cost of 20,000 naira that will be charged to the project. Yes, Edward, talk to me.
It's irrelevant because it will be carried out by existing staff.
Okay, it is irrelevant because it will be carried out by existing staff. Irrespective of the decision taking, it is irrelevant. Okay, so you are correct. So we are going to ignore the supervision cost of 20,000 naira. All right, so let's move on. The next one is overheads. We are told that overhead has been charged to the project at the rate of 200% on direct labor. Remember, there are two types of overhead. We have variable overhead. Then we also have fixed overhead. In the determination of relevant costs, only variable overhead is relevant. Fixed overhead is irrelevant. I will take it again. There are two types of overhead. One is variable and two, fixed overhead. In the determination of relevant costs, only variable overhead is relevant. The fixed overhead is irrelevant and should be ignored. So in this question, examiner told you that overheads have been charged to the projects at the rate of 200% on direct labor. When you go to the table, you will see overhead is 120,000 naira. So 200% of direct labor cost of 60,000 will give us 120,000. So examiner is only explaining how they arrive at the 120,000 naira. Therefore, I want to put it to you, this overhead of 120,000 naira, is it relevant or irrelevant? Whatever is your answer, you just have to justify. Give me the reason why. Yes. overheads, 120,000, relevant or irrelevant? If you know it, raise your hand. Yes. Okay. All right. So this overhead of 120,000 naira is irrelevant. Why? Because examiner just said overhead. Like I explained, I don't know which of them. Is it variable or fixed? That 120,000 naira, is it variable or fixed? Since it is not broken down into variable or fixed, it means that it's a general overhead. Any general overhead is irrelevant cost and should be ignored. But if in the question examiner was specific by telling me that, okay, this is variable overhead, this is fixed overhead, I will know that I only need to take the variable overhead. But since the examiner did not mention, it is assumed to be general overhead. Therefore, it is irrelevant because it is not specific to the project. We ignore it. It's irrelevant. Next item. The company is currently operating at the point above break-even point. Remember, break-even point is the point where total revenue will equate total cost. The point at no profits, at no gain, no loss. Okay, the point where there is no gain, no loss. That's break-even point, 0.0. Any point above break-even point will result into a profit. Any point below break-even point will result to a loss. So if the company is currently operating above break-even point, it means that the company is profitable. Okay. So the project will need the utilization of machinery that will have no other use of the company after the project has finished. The machinery will have to be purchased at a cost of 100,000 naira and then disposed of for 52,500 naira at the end of the project. So how do we treat this information? If you know it, raise your hand. Machine utilization. We have 100,000 naira. We have 52,500. How do we treat that information of the machinery? Eloho, talk to me.
For machinery, the cost is a relevant cost, and then would take the cost of acquiring the machine less the disposal cost. That would be our relevant cost.
Okay, of course. All the cost of purchasing the machine of 100,000 naira is relevant. All right. The 100,000 naira, you are correct, Eloho. So the 100,000 naira is relevant. Why is it relevant? Because if not because of this project, the company will not purchase the machinery of 100,000 naira. However, you are told that at the end of the project, the machinery will be disposed of at 52,500. So technically, how much was the company incurred to purchase the material? If you buy something of 100,000 naira, you sell it for 52,500. So technically, you are going to spend, your cost is 47,500. So Aloho, you are correct. That's the treatment. So let's go and indicate that. Machinery or machine utilization. Machine utilization. Okay. Under this, the costs, purchase cost is 100,000 naira. Then disposal, purchase cost, then disposal value. When the contract is finished or is completed, it will be disposed of at 52,500 naira. So the net purchase price is 47,500. That's all. Let's move on. The last paragraph. The company tells you that the overseas customer is prepared to pay up to a maximum of 300,000 naira for the project and a competitor is prepared to accept the order at that price. That 300,000 naira is the contract price. Okay, that's the contract price. It also informs you that the minimum it can charge is 400,000 naira, as the above shows 320,000 naira. And this does not take into consideration the cost of the machine and profit to be taken on the project. What the examiner is simply saying here is that the overseas customer is willing to pay 300,000 naira. The company has estimated that they are going to incur 320,000 naira as shown in the table above. However, the company is saying that they cannot accept that 320,000 and that the minimum they can charge, they can't accept the 300,000 contract price, and that the minimum they can charge is 400,000 naira. Even the 400,000 naira does not account for the cost of purchasing machinery of 100,000. Meanwhile, you are also told in this paragraph that the company's competitor is willing and ready to accept the 300,000 naira. So how do we treat this information? Of course, it has nothing to do with our calculation of relevant cost. So the last paragraph, it will only help us to build our report. When we are writing our report, we can just comment on that. Okay, so there's nothing to do about this in terms of the relevant cost that we want to prepare. So at this stage, we need to determine the total cost. All right, add everything together. What do we have? Give it to me. Total relevant cost. What do you have? Okay, bring out my calculator.
180,000.
What did you say?
180,000.
180,000. So here is 180,000. Okay, I will then say the relevant cost. The relevant cost of executing project X is 180,000 naira. That's not the end of the question. In that number A requirements, even though you have done your calculation perfectly, okay, you also need to state your assumptions for you to be able to earn your full mark. Even though the examiner is asking you to do that in the question as well. So number A, Roman figure 2, assumptions. So I want to show you how to state assumptions. You then say the calculation above, is based on the following underlying assumptions. So like I mentioned the other time, assumption is not something you are going to fabricate. It's there in the question. Examiner is simply asking you to explain how you have come about your figures. How do you arrive at your numbers? Tell me. Okay? So when you are stating your assumption, you have to follow in the order of the additional information as given to you. When you look at the question we just solved, the first item in the additional information is material A. So how did you treat material A and the material B in the question? So that's what the examiner is asking us. So let's do it together. Number 1, material. So we then go back to the question. What information do you have about material in the question? You are told that material A is in stock. And the above was the cost. That is 40,000 naira of material A is in stock. There is now no other use for material A other than the above project within the factory, and it will cost 17,500 naira to dispose of. So let's talk about that. Let's comment on it. What are you supposed to say? You then say the cost of material A, the cost of material A of 40,000 naira is a sunk cost because it's a sunk cost. It's already passed. Examiner has told you that the material is in the stock and the above 40,000 naira is the cost. So it's a sunk cost. That's a past cost. The cost of material A of 40,000 naira is a sunk cost and therefore not relevant to the calculation. So that's that. Then we continue. The only relevant cash flow relating to material A is the saving of 17,500 naira arising from its disposal. So I'm done. I've explained how I treated material A. So if you like, you can comment on material B, because in the question examiner has told you that material B would have to be ordered at the cost shown above. So that's the only figure you have in the question, and that's what you have used. So there's no point you commenting on material B. If you comment on it, no issue. But if you ignore it, no issue. All right, I won't comment anything on material B. Then the next one is labor cost, direct labor cost. Number 2, direct labor cost. How much is the labor cost? I will then go back to the question. We are told that direct labor cost of 60,000 naira relate to workers that will be transferred to this project from another project. Extra labor will need to be recruited to the other project at a cost of 70,000 naira. And we said that that 60,000 naira is irrelevant because irrespective of the decision taken on project X, the company will surely pay the workers that 60,000 naira. However, the extra labor cost of 70,000 naira is relevant. Okay, it's relevant. So let's state that the labor cost of 60,000 naira is irrelevant because the existing staff, the existing workers will be paid or will be paid irrespective of the decision taken on project X. However, the cost of recruiting the cost of recruiting extra labor of 70,000 naira is relevant, and this has been included, and this has been included in the calculation. Okay. Again, that is done. We move on to the next one. You know, when you are stating your assumption, don't go and be memorizing what lecturer is saying, what I'm taking in the class. Just understand the basic, understand the reason why you are doing it the way you are doing it, so that you'll be able to express yourself. Even me, if I want to redo this maybe tomorrow, I can't be writing the same thing. I have to express it in another way. So don't, it's not something that you can cram. You just have to express yourself the way you understand it. That's all. It's not compulsory. You must write it the way I'm doing it. Next one. Supervision costs. We are told that supervision has been charged to the project on the basis of 33 1/3% of labor cost and will be carried out by assisting staff with their normal duties. Our agreement is that, of course, supervision cost is irrelevant since it will be carried out by the assisting staff with their normal duties. So no additional cost will be incurred. So number 3, supervision. The supervision cost of 20,000 naira is irrelevant since the work will be carried out by the assisting staff with their normal duty. Okay, so that's that. It's irrelevant. Number 4, we go back again to the question. Number 4 is overheads. We are told that overheads have been charged to the project at the rate of 200% on direct labor. And our alignment is that what we agree is that these overheads of 120,000 naira is irrelevant because it is not separated between variable and fixed overhead. Therefore, it is assumed to be general overhead, and general overhead is irrelevant cost. So let's state it. Overheads. The overhead of 120,000 naira as shown, let me put that on. The overhead of 120,000 naira is assumed to be general overhead since it is not separated between variable and fixed. Let me use the right word there so that I don't say that's the way I did it in the class. Between variable and fixed overhead. Okay, so that's why we ignore it. Okay. The overhead of is assumed to be general overhead since it is not separated between variable and fixed overhead. Therefore, the overhead is irrelevant to the calculation. Then, of course, number 5. So like I told you, assumption is not something you are going to fabricate. It's there in the question. Just tell the examiner how you have come about your figures. That's all. No student should fail relevant costing question, because if you are able to, even if your final answer is not accurate, but you are able to post some line item correctly, then you are able to explain your assumptions. Certainly, you are going to pass. You are going to pass. Then the next paragraph, this has to do with machine utilization. So we are told that the project will need the utilization of machinery, that we have no other use of the company after the project has finished. The machinery will have to be purchased at a cost of 100,000 naira and then disposed of for 52,500 naira at the end of the project. So how did we treat this? So let me put it down. Machine utilization or machinery. The only costs, the only cost, the only relevant cost, the only relevant cost associated with the machine utilization is the net amount, is the net amount of 47,500 naira, representing the difference between the purchase price, the purchase price or purchase cost of 100,000 naira and the disposal value of 52,500 naira. That's all. We have explained to the examiner how we treated the machinery. Okay? So what else do we have there? The last paragraph. So this talked about the contract price of 300,000. So this has nothing to do with our calculations. So just for information purpose. So that's that. That's that. With this, you can be able to earn your full mark in the requirement number A. You can see the effort required to state your assumption relative to the effort you spent or the time you spent to prepare your calculation. So it's not the same thing. And that's one of the reasons why assumptions carries more mark than the normal calculation. Okay, so let me know if you have any question on this before we move to requirement number B. Any question? Okay, so let's move to requirement number B. Now, requirement number B is talking about report writing. Reports. Okay. Let's go back to the question and read the requirements. Write a report to the company stating whether the organization should tender for the project, stating the reasons why, and the price, and bearing in mind that the competitor is prepared to undertake the project for 300,000 naira. So examiner is asking you to write a report. Now, all your calculations in A and also the information given in the question, you have to use this to write a report. Okay, so first thing first, to write a report, you need to ask yourself what kind of report. What kind of report you want to write? Is it a memo kind of report, or is it a letter kind of report? The person that is writing the report and whom you are writing the report to will determine whether it's going to be internal memorandum or a letter. So to do this, you go to the first paragraph of the question. If you don't see anything that can guide you on how to write your report, then the requirement should be able to state how you will go about it. Now, when you look at this question, in the first paragraph, you are told that Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company PLC has approached you for some expert advice on Project X. Who in Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company approached you? When you say manufacturing company, the name of the company is generic. It's not related to anyone. Therefore, you can assume that it is the management that approached you. Who are you? You are an expert. You are to provide expert advice on Project X. But who are you? Who is responsible to provide this expert advice? It has to be a management accountant. It is only the management accountant that are endowed with the requisite experience, qualification, and also to provide opinion on this project, on whether this Project X should be accepted or not. So management has approached management accountants. They need to identify, they need to determine this management accountant, is he an employee of the company or is an external consultant? Because this will help you to this will guide you when you are preparing your report. So if your assumption is that the management accountant is an employee of the company, that means you are going to write internal memorandum. You are going to write a memo to the management. But if you assume that this external consultant, this expert is an external consultant, that means you are going to write a letter to the management of Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company. So whichever one you do, you are okay. So it all depends on the assumption that you have made. So as far as this question is concerned, I don't see, examiner did not tell us whether this is whether it's an external consultant or is an employee of the company. So we are going to assume that is an employee of the company. All right. So this management accountant is an employee of the company. So in that case, we are going to prepare internal memorandum. So in that, if you want to write internal memo, what are the things do you need to consider? Okay. What are the things to consider? Let me see. Some of you are just going up and off and on. No worries. Okay. Let me know if you guys are still with me. I need one of you to say hi. Speak up.
I.
Okay. I just want to be sure that I'm not speaking to baskets. All right. Okay, so we want to write our report. We have agreed that this is going to be an internal memo. kind of report because we are told that the company has approached you for some expert advice on Project X. We have determined that this expert is an employee of the company and the expert is a management accountant. The company approached you. Who in the company that approached you? It has to be the management. Who is in the who is representing the management? Maybe the CEO, all right? Or irrespective. So I would then say, I want to write internal memo. To do this, there's a specific format for writing internal memo. When you're writing internal memo, you have to indicate who is writing the report, to whom are you writing the report, what is the subject, just like the way you normally write email. In your email, you have subjects, the person that is writing the report and you want to send the report to, okay? Just like the same way you normally write the email. So then, of course, you have introduction. There's nothing like dear sir, dear ma, because you are not writing a letter. It is only when you are writing a letter that you say dear sir, dear ma. All those things will not work here. Just go straight to the point. And your memo must be very concise, must be briefed and complete. All the things that are supposed to be there, all the ingredients of the report must be present. Leave no stone unturned. Everything must be present, but your report must be very concise because management does not have time to be reading bulky reports. They don't have they don't have the luxury of time to be reading voluminous report. So brief, just go straight to the point, but you must ensure that your report is complete. All the ingredients that are supposed to be there, salt and pepper, meat, fish, ensure that everything you put it in your report. But don't indicate or don't include anything that is irrelevant to the question. It has to be something that you have done or that is given to you in the question. All right. So let's talk about let's go through this report together. And I'm sure we can't do another one again. This will be the last question we solve today. Okay, then. To write the report, I would then say, if you like, however you want to do it, both are fine. So you can start from, you can say from management accountant. Management accountant is the expert. To, who are you writing the report to? You are writing to management. If you like, you can start you can say to management accountant, then next to the management, then from management accountant. However you want to put it, you are correct. Then after this, you need to indicate the subject. What's the subject? Now, pay attention to this. As a student or as students, all of you cannot have the same subjects. Your report must have a subject, and you cannot have the same subject. So whatever you think is the subject is what examiner is going to mark for you. If you like, you can write project X. Another student can write evaluation of project X. Another one can say analysis of project X. Another student can say acceptance or rejection of project X. So whatever you think from the question that is to be your subject is what the examiner will mark for you. What is important is that your report must have a subject. That's the most important thing. So I can come here to say evaluation of project X. Okay? Then, of course, your report must have a date. Your memo must have a date. So you can just write any date. I can say December 20, 2020, 2024. I can write any date there. Okay. So I can then say Re simply means we are referencing. You want to reference the initial discussion. Re-evaluation of project X. Now, when you're writing your report, you can either use slant format or block format. Okay, whichever one you use, you just have to be consistent. So at all time, you can adopt. What is more professional is the block format. Block format means everything will be on a straight line, on a straight line. All right. So we are adopting block format in our own case. Now, like I mentioned, there's nothing like salutation. Dear sir, dear ma, ignore. We don't need it. You only do that if you are writing a letter. Here we are writing a memo report. Now, this re simply means we are referencing our initial discussion. That means when you say re, it means reference. So refer to you are referencing, you are calling the attention of the person you are sending the report to that okay, oh, we've had a discussion before on this. So we are referencing, we are calling the attention of the person to it. Now, you remember in the first paragraph of this question, you are told that the management of you are told that Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company PLC has approached you for expert advice. That means there is a proud discussion. They've discussed previously on this project X. Because of time, let me just so that I don't delay beyond the normal closing time. Now, you need to give an introduction. Like I said, there's nothing like a salutation. So I can say that consistent with our last discussion on Project X, or I can say refer to our last discussion on Project X. However you want to put it, just give me introduction. All right? Consistent with our last discussion on Project X. On Project X, the oversee Project X from overseas customer, from overseas customer, okay? The project has been evaluated using relevant costs for decision making. Okay, so in this paragraph, in this introduction, I have shown to the management that, okay, oh, we've had a discussion before on this project X, whereby the management asked me to go and evaluate and they come back. To come back to the management, that's why we are preparing this report to demonstrate our position on whether the company should undertake or should accept the contract for Project X. And I've also mentioned in this introduction that the project has been evaluated using relevant costs for decision making. So the person I'm writing the report to, they don't know anything about relevant costs for decision making. So I have the responsibility to be able to explain what do you mean by relevant cost for decision making? What does the company supposed to do based on our calculation? So what are the other things I need to incorporate in this calculation and in this report? That's what we want to do next. So the next thing that we do now is to explain what relevant cost is all about. Remember what I told you. your report must be very brief, straight to the point, no jargons, all right? Don't make it too voluminous because management does not have time to be reading voluminous reports. So the next thing I will do is to give a paragraph. When you are using block format, to give a paragraph, just leave a line, move to the next one. So I can then say, for this purpose, relevant costs are costs that are directly attributable to a course of action, to a particular course of action as a direct consequence to a particular course of action in making managerial decision, They are costs that will be incurred purposely because of Project X, that will be incurred purposely because of Project X. Okay? So my second paragraph of this report has explained what relevant cost is all about. The next paragraph will then be for me to give my advice. The evaluation the evaluation carried out, or the cost evaluation carried out on Project X shows a total relevant cost of 180,000 naira. This means that the project should be accepted because it will enable us to achieve or to aim, to enable us to aim a profit of 120,000 naira. That is 300,000 contract price minus 180,000 naira. Okay? As shown, total amount. Okay, let me do it this way. The cost evaluation carried out on Project X shows a total relevant cost of 180,000 naira, as shown in A above. Let me put it that way. As shown, what space there? Let me manage it. As shown in A above. or in the appendix, however you want to put it. Let me just say A above. Okay, full stop. This means that the project should be accepted because it will enable us to earn a profit of 120,000 naira. That is the difference between the contract price of 300,000 naira and then the relevant cost of 180,000 naira. Continuation from that paragraph. Bearing in mind that our competitor, our major competitor, is willing and ready to accept the offering price. The offering price from the overseas customer, from the overseas customer. Okay, remember in the question, that's what examiner mentioned to you, that the company's competitor, the company tells you that the overseas customer is prepared to pay up to a maximum of 300,000 naira for the project, and a competitor is prepared to accept the order at the price. It also informs you that the minimum blah blah blah. So what I'm trying to say here is that you just have to mention it in your report, because you need to make management to act. You need to say something that will make management to act, to buy your idea. Since your competitors, your major competitor is willing to accept the contract, the management may not want to lose the contract, because if your competitor undertake the job, then the future opportunity will be lost by the company. Your competitor will be the one to benefit in the future. So in order to not to miss that, that's why I just have to comment it to convince the management to accept it, because you already know that the contract has economic and a financial benefit to the company. So yeah, so these are the major things you need to comment about. If you like, you can also mention that, okay, the company should accept the project because it is profitable, since we are going to earn additional profit or contribution of 120,000 naira. Remember in the question too, examiner mentioning that the company is currently operating above break-even point, which means that the company is profitable. That's why they are operating above break-even point. And that's why they don't want to accept anything that will not generate profit for them. Okay. Then finally, this is the conclusion. Okay, this is the conclusion. Um, should you need, I've already made my point to the management. I've advised in the first one, we started with the introduction, whereby I told management that, okay, we have evaluated this project using this particular method. And we went ahead to discuss or to explain what that method really means. Okay. Then the third paragraph, this is where we make our advice that the company should accept the contract at 300,000 naira, because it will enable the company to earn additional profit of 120,000 naira, and that if the company does not accept it, our competitor who is willing and ready to accept the contract at that price. Okay, now that we have made our key points that we need to conclude, I can then say, should you need should you need further clarification? Further clarification? Do not hesitate to contact me or to reach out. Do not hesitate to contact me or to reach out. That's our conclusion. There's nothing like yours sincerely, yours truly, yours faithfully, your co-worker. All those things does not arise here. When you're writing it, just leave it blank. Then you can say, just write out your name. If you like, you can say Adejuwan, or let me use let me use Wazobia. I can say Abubakar. Okay, Abubakar. Chioma, Abubakar Chioma, Adeola. Okay, then you can, if you like, you can indicate your designation. Can indicate your designation, ACA, Associate Chartered Accountants. All the designation that you have, BSc, uh, BSc, MBA, MSc, BRT, APC, PDP, whatever before whatever the designation that you have, just put it there. That's to show that you are an expert. All right, it's coming. This report is coming from an expert. Okay, now on the day of your exam, when you are doing this, there is no need for you to put in your signature. All right. There is no need for you to put in your signature. You can just write management accountant. Now that's all. Management accountant. Okay. So, but in practice, when you are writing internal memo, depending on who you are writing to or who will receive the report, in practice, we do sign memo. We do sign memo because depending, like I said, depending on who you are writing the report to or on the location of the recipient of the report. Now, let's say, for example, you have a company like a company like Dangote, for example. Maybe you that is writing this report, you are in one of the subsidiary of Dangote, or you are in a branch of one of the branches of Dangote companies. So you are then writing the report to the headquarter. Certainly, when you prepare the report, this report needs to be reviewed by some internal management members to be sure that the right thing is done. Because it's one thing for you to write a report, then the local management or the management of the branch will also need to review your report to be sure that the right thing is done, so that you don't get to the headquarters and then messed up yourself, embarrass the entire branch team of management. So you need to avoid that. So one person will prepare the report, another person or one or two more people will need to review the report. Then the highest person in the branch or in the subsidiary, whatever as the case may be, we need to endorse it. We need to endorse the report. Then, of course, it may well be that the person that will sign it will be in the headquarters. Let's also say that this is a multinational company. For example, as a multinational company, let's say the company has a subsidiary in Nigeria and the headquarters is in UK. So before the report will leave Nigeria to UK, the local management will need to review and endorse it. So somebody will prepare it. The management accountant may be the one to prepare the report as a responsible person, will be the one to report it, to prepare the report. Then as you are preparing it, there will be a space for you to sign as a preparer of the report. Then there will be other people that will review the report depending on who contributed to the report. So they also need to review, and they put in their signature. Then the head of the local subsidiary, all right, we need to endorse it that this is good to go. Because when the highest person, the highest authority in the headquarters, let's say for example in the UK, once the person sees that, okay, the right people, the responsible people in Nigeria has reviewed, signed, and also endorsed this report, then that means they can validate, they can be rest assured that the information contained in the report is accurate. All right, is accurate. So that is, but in practice, like I said, they do sign memo. But when you are writing for your exam, that's if you sign it, no issue. But if you don't sign it, also no issue. All right. Anyone that you think is more appropriate is what you should do for yourself. Okay. So that would be the end of today's class. Let me know before we close the class if you have any question for me. That means we have 3 more questions to go. In that case, we'll be not likely finish in our next class because I don't see us solving those big questions, those big 3 questions within 2.5 hours. I doubt it. Okay, I doubt it. But in any case, that's the end of today's class. Let me hear from you before we close the class. Talk to me. Do you have any question for me? I can see some of you have disappeared, but Aaron is still on. Edward is on. Boluwaji Gabriel Chidera is on. I can also see Eloho. I can see Ite, Ahmed, Idrisu, Ijoma, Joseph, Joshua, Mary, Michael, Olani, Shegun, Rahman. Olúṣọlá Adésínà, Tolúlọpẹ́, I have two Tolúlọpẹ́ and then Temitope, Neye, Victoria, and the rest. Thank you guys for holding on. Yes, Shegun, talk to me. Who
Okay.
is
I want,
Edward, please mute. Hold on, Shegun. Edward, please mute. Edward, mute. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Shegun.
I want to ask from the
Talk to me.
B part of
Yep,
this question now. You said we
yep,
assume it is an internal memo
yep.
and therefore we we treat it this way. What if another student assume that is an external memo and then decide to follow the format of writing external memo?
No,
How
if
are
it's
they
a
going to-
if it's a le- if it's a letter, of course,
Okay.
all the ingredients, all the contents that we have here will still be the same thing. But
The
the
same.
thing but when you are writing a letter, you have to give the address of the sender and the receiver of the letter, isn't it? So you that
Yeah.
is writing the letter, you are the sender, so you have to put your address. The person that you want to send into, which is the receiver, we also need to indicate the address of the person. So they are going to have two addresses. Now, when you now want to start building your report, you need to start with the salutation, dear sir, dear ma. Okay. So, but
Okay.
every other content will still remain the same. Then finally, after your conclusion, you then need to indicate that okay, yours sincerely, yours faithfully, whatever you want to put there. So
So,
before you now
so
put your name, yeah,
so does it mean that ICAN will still mark for
of
somebody that
course,
used former
of course, yeah.
method?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the examiner did not tell you to write a memo. It wasn't explicit in the question for you to write a memo. So whatever you assume it to be is what you are going to write down. But in addition to that, if you now want, you can indicate that okay, it is assumed that the management, or sorry, it is assumed that this expert is an employee, is a management accountant as an employee of the company. Therefore, a memo is assumed as appropriate for this report. So if you think that the expert is an external consultant, then you also state the same thing. Oh, it is assumed that this expert is an external consultant to Ojuelegba Manufacturing Company Limited. Therefore, a letter will be written, a letter report would be more appropriate for in this instance. Then you now begin to write all of that. Just it's as simple as that. But if you don't see anything, just write your report. Examiner will mark anyone for you. It's whatever you think
Uh,
it is, that's what examiner will mark for you. Since examiner
uh,
is not specific. Yeah.
okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yes, any other question so that I can release you? Okay. Let me see if I have a message here. Is it the first message from Edward or from you? Let me check. What is the message again? Relax. Yeah. Good evening. Okay, message from Michael. That's the old one. Okay then. In the absence of no further question, I want to say thank you everyone for waiting behind and also for joining the class. Next week, by the grace of God, we are going to continue. Of course, I've already explained all the underlying principles. So what we are going to do next week are purely calculations of past questions, solving of past questions. So hopefully, if you cooperate with me, we'll be able to solve 3 more questions. If not, then wherever we stop, we continue next time. Thank you, everyone. I will see you next week by the grace of God. Good night. Okay.
Good night, sir. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
good
sir.
night. You're welcome.
Good morning, sir. Thank you,
Edward.
sir.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. All right, good night.